I think growing up, there were three core values or three core things that drove me, that emerged over time. I think the first one that's perhaps in your DNA is curiosity, is trying to learn more, not just to know more. But what I found over time is the more you understand something, the easier it's for you to connect the dots. And it just empowers you to make decisions and especially understand unintended consequences. The other thing really was excellence, is that pursuit of excellence. If you do something, you do it right. And I distinctly remember my mother. She was a pre-primary teacher, and she'd sit at the family dinner table until 12 o'clock at night at the end of the quarters, writing reports for children that are 4 and 5 and 6 years old. And my dad would complain bitterly about his wife being at the table until in the wee hours of the night. And he'd say, "Why do you take so much trouble? Why are you pasting these little pictures and drawing things and writing these extensive reports?" And she just said that it matters. It matters to that mother and the father. It matters to the child. That report goes out and it's showed to grandparents. It's showed to uncles, to aunts. And it really matters. And therefore you do it well. So that pursuit of excellence, when you do something, you actually do it well. I think that was ingrained in me in an early stage. I've already mentioned that I grew up privileged in an upper middle income home, but appreciation for money was instilled in me in an early age. The amount of times, I'm 50 now, the amount of times that I had 20 cents in my hand that pretty much those days bought you a Coke and a packet of chips, I worked for. Whether that was cutting grass, mowing the lawn, same thing, or doing dishes, or washing cars, or some sort of task. That really was instilled in me, that you will work for your money and you will appreciate that. And of course, later in your teens, you wish to earn a bit more than 20 cents, so you get a bit entrepreneurial. And I was lucky, I lived next to the coast, so we could catch shad and carantine and sell or barter that for bait. Today it's illegal to go and sell shad, and we would snorkel and dive for lead and hooks and artificial lures that the fishermen lost, and we'd go spearfishing and earn an additional income. And it's just about finding ways to augment your pocket money and the money that you earn. So just that commercialization of what's in front of you, and that pursuit of, there's a situation here, there's some resources, there's time, how can I extract value from that? So, and I think maybe that was the combination of appreciation for what it takes to earn money, the appreciation therefore if it's earned hard, you don't waste it, and then also to look at additional means that you can generate income. Those things, I think, has stood me well in time. Over my lifespan. If I look back, it's really, if I look at the simple thing of curiosity, just wanting to know more, wanting to learn more, and really the ability that it gives you to see a bigger picture and connect the dots. I've got a process at my current company where I'm the CEO of KWV, where everybody that gets a long service awards certificate for 25 years or more, I invite them as a group for a coffee. And we sit down and we have a chat for an hour, and I just explore with them when did they start, what did they learn, what are the good things that they've seen, what are the bad things that they've seen, do they have any advice for me as the CEO? And this is someone that may be a security guard at the gate, it might be a senior financial manager. I do that as a basic principle, engaging with those people. It's all there in front of us, but we often don't want to take the time, or we don't think we've got the time to take and to sit down and explore and ask and just extract from people the value that they've built up. I got to university and I finished my honours degree, master's degree, and my master's degree cum laude, which at that stage was a huge achievement for me, and I was very proud of that. From there, a few months army, I was in one of the last intakes in South Africa, so that was a fairly short stint of basic service and some admin. And I was very privileged at that stage, and it was partly of my good results at university. I was taken into what was then called the Office of the Budget. And this was in 1993, early in 1993, and I joined the Office of the Budget. That was a group of people that was being brought together, youngsters, academics and subject matter experts, to get ready for the transition that South Africa was facing. So between the ANC and the government at the time, there was a negotiation clearly stating how transition of power of the financial control of South Africa, fiscal matters, would move over time. And they created what was called the Office of the Budget. We had accountability to the Ministry of Finance and to the Department of Finance. And in that group of people, you had such a diverse exposure to different cultures, to academics, to subject matter experts. And what was then really interesting for me, or a big learning, is at that point in time we had two ministers in short succession. One was Minister Chris Liebenberg, the other one was Derek Keys, and then came in after election Trevor Manuel and Maria Ramos. And to me, just the absolute difference between, let's call it a new regime and an old regime, was caring. To me, the absolute difference was caring for people, wanting to make a difference. And I think that was, to me, what stood out. I was young. I was 24 years old, 25 years old. You actually don't appreciate at that point in time what's happening to you. Don't appreciate at that point of time the leadership and the thinking that you are getting exposed to. You only realize that after, but it helps to mold you and shape you. And in fact, the day that I resigned, Maria Ramos called me in, and she in no uncertain terms tried to tell me that I'm being a bit of a traitor here. I was leaving for SAB Miller, for SAB Limited at that stage. They had recruited me and they offered me my salary increase and a car. And that was just, you're young and you just want to go and do something. And the car was a Jetta 1800 CLX. I remember it to this day. It was just a fantastic experience. Maria Ramos called me and said, "Boyce, why are you doing this to us?" And I felt very, very guilty. But at the same time, I had committed to someone else. I had signed, and I think if she had caught me a week before, I might just have stayed. She was very persuasive. I was extremely lucky when I joined South African Breweries. I did not join South Africa Breweries South Africa, beer division as it was then called. It was alternative beverages, complementary beverages. So everything except beer sat in this business unit, and I was called the financial analyst for the chairman of complementary beverages. And this covered Ceres fruit juices, appetizer, ABI soft drinks. It covered opaque beer operations. Valpre water was there as well. But I worked for a very special individual. He was a bit of a maverick within SAB Miller at that stage, and I had the privilege of working for him. And one of the first things he did, he said, "Have you got your computer?" "Yes," tick. He said, "You got a table?" "Yes," tick. He said, "Forget all of those things. You get a piece of paper, a book, report to the ABI Midrand depot tomorrow, go and ask for so and so on, and you're going to be on a truck for 2 weeks, a delivery truck for 2 weeks." And that's what I did for the next 2 weeks. I was in a delivery truck. I got an overall, I had my safety shoes, and I was in a delivery truck, driving from store to store to store, getting an invoice, dropping it off, putting it into storeroom of the customer, getting the customer to sign, and really learning what the absolute nuts and bolts of the business is. 2 weeks later, went back. Mike said, "You got 2 days, write me a report, what you saw and what you learned." Got back, and I'm ready to get stuck into business. Said, "Off, 2 weeks. You're going to join that rep. Go to the Benrose depot, ask for Andre Bosman, and you're going to go out with the rep for 2 weeks." And I was with the rep for 2 weeks on their daily route from A to Z, seeing customers and absolutely learning what the business is about. And to this very day, that has stood me in such incredible good stead. I always tell people our business, in the branded beverage business, it's about 3 things. It's about having a brand to sell. It's about having a consumer to sell it to. And the only way that you can get to the consumer is through a customer, is that middleman. Of course, today business is evolving with online, and it is fluid, but ultimately those 3 things remain. And if one doesn't appreciate that that is where the business happens, and it doesn't happen in an office, and it doesn't happen in a boardroom, and when you get this disconnected from that front end of the business, you are in dangerous territory. You are about to get a hiding the moment you get divorced from what's going on there. And the incredible piece is, again, as I said earlier, the absolute truth sits in the front end. I always tell people, every single thing in our business that we screw up, that we make a mistake, there's one person that can always tell you what that is, and that's the salesperson. Every salesperson can tell you what is working, what has been done well, what they need more of, and every salesperson can tell you what has been a mistake, what is not working, and what we should stop doing. And generally, what processes and what systems the business has either helps them or inhibits them. And again, the truth is out there. It is just to take the time to go out there and to learn and to ask questions. On December 22nd, I was out with a rep from KWV from his morning till evening call, and I was his merchandiser for the day. So I went out with him. He introduced me to the customers. This is Boyce. He's from head office. He's my merchandiser for the day. And I was in there stocking shelves, packing shelves, talking to consumers, talking to customers, taking the opportunity to also sell to a consumer that stands in front of a shelf and they just are so confused by what is in front of them, and asking them, what would you like? Is there something specific you'd like? But that's where the business happens, and that's what's so exciting. And when you can get yourself to engage at that front end level of our business, that is powerful. That is when you're really able to understand and bring back into your senior management teams the things that we need to adjust and change. I always tell our teams and our people when I engage with them, it's very easy for us to see if we're losing or winning. And that is when our sales are increasing, when our revenues are increasing, and when our customers are happier with us, and when we're getting repeat purchases on brands. That also means that our consumers have had an enjoyable experience, and they will purchase that yet again, one more time, and again and again and again. And that's what business is about. And if you lose, sales goes down, revenue goes down, and people lose jobs. It is as simple as that. But in the process, one has got to have fun, and one has to enjoy yourself. As I've said, from a business, your main tools, or the main avenues, or the pillars of the business, the front end side of the business, your brands, consumers that's buying the brands, and the customer that is your avenue to get the brands in front of a consumer in a quality way, in a replicable way, day after day after day. But the glue that holds everything together, it's our employees. It's the people that make it work. It's the people that hold it together, that makes it executionable. They are not machines. I always tell people that with sufficient capex, you can buy modern machines, you can buy new machines. But when you've got a company standing in front of you, whether it's 500 employees or 2,000 employees, you can't replace those 2,000 employees or that 500 employees. Yes, people retire. People do have bad health. You lose certain people that leave the business, but it's on a regular, predictable basis. But ultimately, that 500 people, certainly on the KWV side, the 500 people, if all of them disappear tomorrow morning, we don't have a business. It's as simple as that. And that is the glue that holds it together. And a fantastic journey that I had with a great mentor and a great leader in SAB. One of my bosses, I had a 20-year career. For 4.5 years, he was my boss. And it was interesting, and I'm going to say that my career in SAB Miller was always quite interesting. People would ask me, who have you irritated to end up here? And it's part of that adventurous side of me, to wanting to do new things, wanting to go into Nigeria and set up a business, to go and build a production plant in southern Angola or in Sudan. That is just, it's great fun things to go and do. It's a great challenge, and at times, when the clouds move in and you don't know which way to turn anymore, that's when you need to be able to phone a friend. And that's the mentorship to me has just been incredibly powerful in my career, being able to speak to someone. In fact, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going up to Cape St. Francis, one of my old bosses. I try and spend a couple of days with him once a year, just checking in, just a bit of a health check-in, and having a check and asking about what is his opinion about what I'm doing, and exploring with him my doubts and just getting that feedback. It's so powerful when you're able to reflect, and people don't necessarily have the answers. Mostly they don't, but just listening and asking you questions helps to crystallize in your mind what the things that you are grappling with, and what the trade-offs are, and what the possible avenues are that you could follow. But back to our employees, and this great mentor and great boss that I had, when I moved to Latin America and I was going to report to him, I had quite a few phone calls where people said, how on earth can you go and work for X and X? I mean, he's such a tough, difficult person. Why are you doing this? And I just said, that is part of how you learn, is you learn from toughness. This guy is one of the best at what he does, but he's a tough bugger. But it's from toughness that you learn. It's having tough conversations that you actually learn. And one of the great journeys that I had with him is, over many years, many businesses have followed the path of engaging employees on a platform of you matter. You as an employee matter. And you as an employee should have a meaningful job. And it's all about the employee, and it's all about a meaningful job. And the basic premise of that is, well, if you have an employee that matters, if you have a meaningful job, they'll do better in their job. They'll be more productive. They will enhance the returns of the business. But he took it one step further. And he instilled in us that it is not just about you matter, but it's about I matter. I as an employee matter. Moving from a meaningful job to a meaningful life. And within that, and it sounds perhaps difficult, and it was difficult to try and get your heads around that, as to how do you do this? What are the tools that you're going to engage with employees to actually move from X to Y, that you matter, speaking down to an employee, to I matter as an employee, I as a person matter. So that complete engagement with the employee. And there were quite a few tools, and the greatest underpinning tool of all of them was communication. And we had a process that was called a meaningful conversations, where people would sit down and make the time and say, how's it going with you as a person? How are you doing? How are you doing in your job? How are you doing in life? It's not a forced conversation. It's the comfortable conversation. And sometimes, to make it more comfortable, you'd have it in a group. And it would not be the boss. It would be peers facilitated by a third party. So they're not speaking in front of the boss. They're speaking to their friends at work about how they feel, what they're doing, what their fears are, and it's facilitated. And within this meaningful conversations, there was a special tool that we were trained on. And I mean, this was drilled into us. This was real training, was appreciative inquiry. And that is about having a conversation, truly listening and understanding, and exploring what the other person has just said. Not giving a person to say something so that you can reply with your own idea. It's about exploring what the person, listening very carefully, and exploring and internalizing what the person has just said to you, what you heard, and then asking questions around that to make sure that you understand the complete picture. What are the driving forces of that? Why is this person saying that? And that was the appreciative inquiry piece. So there are some real tools that you can do to drive that, or create the platform that people can engage in that level. But another very simple example. You have someone on a pack line. They're a filler operator. That's what they do. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, in a country like Honduras. And a very simple gesture that we made. It's an industrial site producing alcohol and soft drinks. So you've got all sorts of rules and regulations about safety and people visiting. You've got machines turning. And we created special opportunities where a father could bring his son or daughter to work for 4 or for 5 hours, or his or her spouse, or his mother or father, or his uncle, and show them what they're doing. This is my job. This is what I do every day. And this is why it's important. And this is how it falls in the bigger picture. That Coke or Fanta or beer that you're drinking over the weekend, I was in front of the machine making that. I made a difference. This is my life. This is my meaningful piece of what I do. And bringing the reality of what dad or mother does in work, taking it out to the family. That very simple gesture, which is complicated. You've got to bring people onto site. You've got to do safety briefings. You've got to keep them away from steam, from electricity. It just made an incredible difference. The level of employee engagement after that was just so substantive. It was just absolutely amazing. And then at a top-down level, from a management perspective, we are always so driven on targets. Did you make the profit? Did you make the timeline? Did you make the sales volume? So it's all what? Actually, what matters as much as the what is the how. How were those goals achieved? Have you in the process been sustainable in your relationship with your boss, with your peers, with your teams? How did you achieve this? Are you going to replicate this? Have people bought in? Have you developed people? Have you had conversations with them? Do you understand what's going on in the business? Do you understand what they are doing? Are you empowering yourself and them to do better, to come forward with ideas, to go down a path of continuous improvement? And what we got to at some point was, we don't care if you ticked all the boxes on the what. If you didn't get the how right, the what didn't matter. You fluked. You flunked. You flunked your test. You didn't make the grade. Sorry, go back. Your performance rating for this year is not a 3 on target. It's actually a 2 below target. Yeah, you got to all of your goals, but you didn't do it in the how. And one of the very powerful tools is in the how and exploring the how, is you've got to get 360 feedback from people. And it sounds very complicated again, and some businesses will build a system where there's an email that goes out asking for input. It's just you with your peers, with people who report to you and your boss. You ask them 3 simple questions. Stop, start, continue. And the stop is, what am I doing that's not helping? And it's not just the what, it's the how that I'm doing it. It's not just the what. There's some things that needs to stop, is a business plan, for example. Stop that plan. Or it's the how, but specifically it's up for you to explore what is happening on the how side. And start, what am I not doing? What do I need to start doing that I'm not doing that will help me, that will help the business, that will help you? And continue. So this is really working. Do more of the same, please. Or you can improve this. And that is another simple way where a senior manager can say stop, start, continue. Now, I must tell you from personal experience, it is amazing. You ask 10 people these stop, start, continue questions, you get pretty consistent answers back. If you want to see yourself in a mirror, very quickly, stop, smell the roses, ask peers, your boss, and a few people who report to you these simple 3 things: stop, start, continue. And then ask yourself, what are you seeing here? But again, listening, and your immediate reaction is one of apprehension, of defensiveness. And that's where the meaningful conversations and the appreciative inquiry mechanism and tool comes in to say, shut down your defenses. You've got someone is trying to tell you something. Listen, try and appreciate, ask questions, explore. And it's a very, very powerful tool for your self-development. And that very first boss that I spoke about when I joined SAB, he one day told me, if only you can see yourself as other people see you. I'll never forget that. If only you can see yourself as other people see you. And it was a little bit, he was asking if only. And in fact, it's right in front of us. It's about asking people and then having the humility to listen and just shutting down your defenses and exploring and asking people. And of course, you only get there after building up some trust. You don't just call someone in and say, stop, start, continue. You've got to build this trust over time in the conversation that, how is performance going? Here's the what's, here's the how's. What do we think? I've heard this, I've gotten this feedback. What do you think? How do you want to develop yourself? It's only when you have that conversation in a consistent way, that you get the real truth, and where people feel the freedom to engage with you and say, Boyce, you know what, when you do that, it doesn't help, it disempowers me. Or Boyce, when you do that, that really works. Can we please have more of the same of that from you as a leader? I don't think you can force leadership. I think leadership is in your DNA. You can adjust this over time. You can amplify what is good, but you've got to have these stop, start, continue conversations where people give you feedback as to what is working, what is not working. But for me as a leader, we have to set the north. We have to get consensus on objectives. You're not always going to get consensus of objectives, and then you've got to set the north. You've got to go after this. You've got to make sure that people are empowered and have got the tools to achieve their objectives, and then you've got to provide the glue. You've got to make sure that there's a glue that holds us together, and that's about everything that you do, whether it's communication or performance reviews, or people clearly understanding what they need to achieve. But the one thing I want to say about leadership, there are many leadership styles. The one leadership style that I've seen time and time again fail is a command leadership mixed in with fear. And that is where you've got a very strong-willed individual that sort of have the ruler in the hand. And I've seen this time and time again. What tends to happen is that individual never gets to hear the truth. People are scared to speak out. People are scared to admit mistakes, and the organization often gets caught up in indecision. Everybody eventually gets too scared to decide anything. And that's the one thing I'd like to say about leadership styles. But if there's one thing that if you start to hear through your stop, start, continue discussions that, Boyce, you know what, 2 weeks ago this happened and you came down quite heavily, or you said over my dead body, and there's certain language that you use, and if you dare do that, when those sort of things start to creep into your vocabulary and your engagement with employees, be very, very careful. But again, you'll only know that if you ask people. I've had a really amazing journey, and one of the great privileges that I had was I was working out of South Africa for the last 8-9 years. During 2016, I was head of the integration team in the SAB Miller AB InBev transaction. It was an incredible learning process for me. Great humility as well, learning and dealing with a huge amount of people, extremely knowledgeable across many aspects of the business beyond the commercial front end, where typically I was. But I had the opportunity to come back to South Africa. I always wanted to come back, and it was a great opportunity to come back. And that was to join KWV as the CEO. Vivian Immerman is proud South African. He was busy with a transaction to purchase KWV and the assets and delisted into a private entity. And he asked me if I would consider being the CEO of KWV. And I after 20 years career, it was a difficult choice, but it was a great choice that I've made. And I really one of the great attractions to me on KWV is a heritage company that has been part of the South African DNA since 1918. And somewhat neglected at the commercial front end, which I felt was a strength of mine. So I certainly felt that I could add value. But then just the responsibility of taking an asset, a South African heritage asset, and taking that, nurturing it, and making it stronger. I always tell my current senior team, our job is to have our employees go to bed feeling safe. Our employees must go to bed at night feeling safe. They don't need to lie in their beds and worry about tomorrow and the direction of the business. That is our jobs, is to make them go to bed, feel safe. As leading KWV at the moment, as I said, one of the attractions is to really be stronger on the commercial front end, and it's a heritage asset of South Africa. It's been around for 100 years. And to me and my team, our job is to take this company, this business, and leave it stronger than what we found it. We got to leave it in a stronger and better position once we found it. When we walk away, we close the door, we've got to leave it in a better place than what we found it. That's what we got to do every day. Of course, from a KWV business perspective, A lot of our business is on the export side, and the political volatility does not make it easier. You know, one of the things that business really needs is predictability and stability. It's very difficult to manage a business when you've got key variables that are unpredictable and volatile. And you know, we're in a political situation right now. Of course, globally, there's always uncertainty. There's always volatility. It's part of life. Deal with it. But what we as South Africa need to get on top of is to not to go and amplify that volatility for business by causing noise on the national front, whether that is unstable policy, whether it's unpredictable policy, whether it's infighting at a leadership level. This is the one thing that we can do for ourselves. Volatility is always and forever going to be there, but let's not make it worse for ourselves. And it's important for us in our business. A lot of our business is exports, and as a simple example, you may set up a business in the UK that is viable at 17 rands to the pound. When the currency does weaken, it goes to 17.50 or 18, it means that your profitability is higher. At the same time, don't get complacent. Don't then go and load your cost basis because you're making more profit. Understand that you've got volatility that you've got to deal with. But the point is, you set up a business today, you get everything for 17, and then the rand goes to 15.50. And suddenly that business is unviable. And it's that instability and the ups and downs that makes it difficult. But again, it's part of international business. But what we can do as South Africans better is to create less noise, so that we don't amplify that instability or volatility that is out there anyway.